Hello everyone, this is Caleb Simpson, and you're watching my 100% walkthrough for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword for Nintendo Wii. Welcome to the third dungeon of the game, Lanayru Mining Facility, which is honestly one of my favorites in the entire game. It's just so interesting. There can be frustrating if you're constantly like sinking in sand or whatever, or falling down pits, but other than that, I just think it's a very interesting dungeon. Like, one of the things I like about Zelda games is just when it's like really engaging, like there's just different things happening all the time, and this dungeon is just filled with a lot of variety. So our first objective is to use the nearby bomb flowers to land it into one of these robot walls off to the left, which will make it fall down, and then we can reach this lever on the far left side. This will open the door moving forward. And that's actually all we have to do in this room, so you can just continue on to the next room. Otherwise, you can hang up with me for the next little bit, and I'll get a bunch of different goodies. Now, one of the little tricks you can use with the bomb flowers when you're using the beetle like this is you can actually grab the bomb and then make the radius of the explosion just hit the enemy that you want to defeat. So we're going to go off to the left side, but before we do that, I'm going to use the bomb to defeat the electro spume over there, and as long as I'm doing that, I'm going to kill some of the Araka on the middle platform as well. So by shooting the bomb, like dropping it right in the middle, you can hopefully kill some of the Araka as well as the electro spume at the same time. Now, I mentioned this in the last couple of videos, but there's a trick for getting across sand really easily, is you can hold Z and forward and A at the same time to jump forward, and then you can release Z but keep holding forward and A. This will allow you to dash across the sand. The advantage of this is what it does is it lets you jump forward without using any stamina, and then you start using stamina in the middle of the sand. So you don't actually start running in the sand with stamina, you actually start using stamina a little bit after that. And the result is that you have a little bit more stamina to use before you've even begun, you've already saved a little stamina. So it's just a little trick. So if you just hop forward with Z and A, you can actually make a little bit of distance before you ever even start consuming stamina, which is awesome. So go ahead and pull this lever. This actually releases opens up an alcove nearby that has a chest containing 20 rupees in it. That's all we had to do here, so work your way back towards the middle platform where the Araka are hanging out and defeat them. Now, Araka themselves, I think they actually don't hurt you. I think they just slow you down. Or maybe they do hurt you, but very slowly, but they'll just latch onto you and you gotta shake your controllers to get them off. But they're pretty easy. They can be killed with just about anything. I think even slingshots will attack them as well, or defeat them as well with a single hit. And I think even there's an item we get later in the game, and I think that'll actually work on them as well. But defeat all the Araka in this next room, and then push one of the boxes up against the ledge. Two of these boxes are wooden, so if you accidentally, I think if you can even roll into them and it breaks them. Maybe not though. There's a metal one regardless though, so if you accidentally blow this up with bombs or whatever, you can use the metal one to reach this upper platform. That's all we can do in this room for now, so go ahead and enter the next door. So you can save at the nearby bird statue if you like, then continue on to the right. We have a bomb flower on top of this nearby robot statue, and you want to use it on the middle of the top of the crates up ahead so that it blows up all of these wooden crates at once. You can technically use a regular bomb. That is a little bit trickier. That's like a speedrunning tactic. You can lay a bomb here at the end and then like grab it with the beetle really quick. That's very difficult. Anyways, I think you can just blow up the front row of boxes and that would work too. So watch out for the yellow choo-choo up ahead and then jump across. If you only blow up one row of boxes, you could just climb up the other ones. And up ahead we have a new enemy here. Thunder, 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 thunder keys. I would totally do the actual song, but I think I would just get copyright claimed the heck out of this video if I did that. Many years ago, I did have music in some of my videos, sometimes even just short clips, like 5 seconds of other songs, even really old ones from like the 60s, and it still got copyright claimed, so I don't know. I feel like there's like nothing you can do on YouTube anymore these days to actually have music and not have it copyright claim your videos, which is terrible because it just flags your whole channel, so it's awful. So you have to avoid that entirely. I've actually debated about having I have to make my own theme songs. I play piano, so I have recorded some various things as well. Anyway, grab the small key in the nearby chest, then work your way back to this previous room, and one of these doors has a locked door, which is the one on the left. And here we have some nostalgia along the way. You can just run past them, you don't actually have to fight them at all, but I do like to kill them because they always drop a red rupee, which is worth 20, so that's nice, just free monies. We like free monies. You know, you don't have to pay for free monies. Now, these guys can be just defeated by slashing all of their heads at once. And the easiest way to do this actually is to just hit them, and then right after their heads regrow, their heads are always horizontal. Here I just wasn't close enough. But anyways, you just use a horizontal slash or a horizontal spin attack, and this will defeat all of the heads at once, right after the head regrows. And that's the easiest way to take care of them. I guess I've just always used the sword. I've never really thought about using other weapons. I wonder if they can be stunned with the slingshot and stuff like that, or defeated with bombs. So somebody could let me know in the comments and try that. That'd be kind of cool. Anyway, enter the nearby locked door using that small key, and here we have a new enemy called called a froak. Now, froaks are these pufferfish-looking things, and they can get bonked around with your beetle, but really what makes them blow up is either if they touch you, or they touch another solid object, not the beetle, which is weird, but if they smack like the floor or the wall or whatever. So what you want to do is you want to fly the beetle into the top of them so that they smack down into the floor. When they come in contact with the floor, they'll explode. And I think sometimes they even come back after a little bit, so even if you defeat them, they might come back. I think these particular ones actually stay defeated, but anyways, you'll notice that my beetle was going all over the place. This is because my sword is way uncalibrated. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just recalibrating it real quick. I don't know, man. Like, it's weird. Like, I feel like my calibration is, like, great half the time, and the other half the time it's horrible. It's really sad. And again, I've never had this happen before. This is the first playthrough where it just kept happening all over again, over and over again. I'm actually kind of wondering if there's, like, something in my room, or there's, like, too many Bluetooth devices or something like that, and, like, I know this happened during the E3 when they were first showing off the previews for this game for the Wii. It was, like, towards the end of the Wii's lifespan. And they showed gameplay of this on stage, and there was so much interference from people's Wi-Fi connections on their phones, I think it was the deal, and just other devices that people had, that the Wiimote was not, like, connecting very well, and so it was being really messy. Now, another way you can do this, too, with the bomb flowers, you can actually grab a regular bomb and quickly switch to the beetle, and you can bring it up to it so that the explosion, the radius of it, will bonk into the crate as well. That's another way to do that. It's a little more advanced tactic. It is much harder, but you could definitely do it that way as well. So once you get to the top, you want to stand on the floor switch, and this will remove the bars that are in the central area that is covering the timeshift stone. This will allow you to use the beetle to fly over to it. You could technically use the slingshot, but it's really hard. And once again, somehow my controller got uncalibrated again, so I fixed it, and then now my beetle works great. Now, I do have the quick beetle that allows you to hold down A when you're not currently holding something, and it will make the beetle move significantly faster. So I used it to smack the timeshift orb. This made it so that it moved this entire room into the past. So now I'm going to hop down. Here we have another new enemy called a Beamos. Now, unfortunately, I was trying to shield bash and realized I unequipped my shield, or when I upgraded my shield, I forgot to equip it. So what you can do is you can actually shield bash their lasers, which is kind of interesting. I think a lot of people don't realize you can do that. Now, you do want to make sure your sword is calibrated well, because you do need to be able to stab these guys in the head to defeat them. So you need a horizontal slash at first. Technically, you can actually use stabs for the whole time. You can just stab, 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 and that will defeat them as well. In this next area, we just need to use the conveyor belt. There, you see I used the sailcloth when I was jumping off that ledge because I wanted to stop my fall, or stop my forward momentum, because otherwise you can land on that platform and it will knock you into the electricity off to the right. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm opening this lever or whatever. What that does is it opens a nearby chest containing rupees. That's nothing important. So you can do that if you want to, but all we really need to do is move forward on this conveyor belt. And how this works is if you're just running by yourself, like with no stamina, then you just kind of stay in place. But if you're using stamina, then you'll steadily make progress. You want to get the stamina fruit along the way so you can steadily make progress towards the next area. When you're on these conveyor belts, as long as you're moving with it anyways, you don't regenerate stamina on your own. Now, if you did want to unlock those rupees, you can head over here to the left and defeat this Beamos. You don't have to defeat it technically, you can just run past it, but I think shield bashes are the best way to deal with that. I always kind of like ran away and hid back a little ways, but now that I've started learning that you could use shield bashes on these guys, I think it makes it significantly easier. They're really awesome for that. And actually, another interesting note about those is you can actually start using a Skyward Strike. So if you start charging your sword before you get up to them, you can actually like unleash it for that first strike, because as soon as you deal damage to them, then they will actually, it like stuns them for a second and then it interrupts their attack. Anyway, that left side was optional. You want to run up the ramp and then go along this conveyor belt, and once again you want to stash and collect these stamina fruits in order to continue progressing. So if you want to, you could get your sword out right now. The problem with that is you have to be like on the conveyor belt, and you could start charging a Skyward Strike, but again, I just think it's easier to run over real quick and start slashing away. Otherwise, you can use a shield bash if you think that it's already pointing towards you or whatever. Go ahead and jump to the lever, and then this will open the nearby door. Don't be too hasty to get on this conveyor belt, because if you're running with it especially, you can, like, you'll just move really, really fast, and you could accidentally run into one of those spiky ore things. I wonder if those are unrefined timeshift stones, because that's what they said the Lanayru Mining Facility was for refining those into other things. I also wonder what the heck happened with that, because it put it in this room. That conveyor belt was like leading right here, and then there's nothing there, so I don't know what happened. Off to the right, you can see that there is actually a froak. You want to bonk into it using the beetle to bonk it into the nearby rocks on the platform. This allows us to progress, and I think you could technically make the jump over across this far corner, but it's really difficult. Anyways, just continue along the blocks along the right wall, and this will eventually lead to a ladder. You want to climb up it, and you'll find a chest containing the dungeon item. All right, we got the anti-vacuum cleaner. So the Gust Bellows allow you to just blow things around, and it's honestly pretty darn worthless. It's cool kind of in some of the Lanayru areas, but for the most part it's kind of worthless. It doesn't do any damage, it doesn't really do anything super exciting, it's just for specific puzzles. I'm not really sure why. It makes me feel like it's just the controls are like a little bit better than using Flood from Super Mario Sunshine, I guess. It seems like just a nicer version of that, except there is no water. The Gust Bellows are fairly handy at smacking the Froak in the direction you want to go. You can just kind of whip them around, and that's great. Unfortunately, you do want to watch out because the Froak do reappear very quickly. So they'll just pop out of thin air, and they'll start floating towards you again and steadily try to blow up on you. Now, the reason they're here, though, and the reason they reappear is because they're required to break the rocks that are on top of these hills. Now, you don't actually have to use Froak, technically. You could just use regular bombs. I'll talk about that more in just a second. You want to continue onwards, and there is actually a block you can push down that makes a shortcut back up in case you fall down. So that's nice. So now we can get through this room very easily. I hopped down to try and get this treasure chest up ahead, and I thought it was on this side. It's not. It's on the other side, so I'm going to actually go back and get to that. Whoops. So as I was saying about the rocks, you could also blow them up with just regular bombs, and you can just, like, pick up a bomb, set it down, pick it back up again so it's blinking, and then you can just throw it at the correct time, and that would actually work as well. Otherwise, though, too, technically you could also set it on the ground and pick it up with a bead, although that's more of an advanced tactic. And yes, Goddess Plume! Oh yeah, dude, these are the most rare ones. I'm so excited to have this. I did mention before that this is me redoing, or like, I had a separate file or whatever that I was recording this game on initially, and so this is that file, so my treasures are slightly different from what I had before. Most notably, I have like a couple more treasure than I had before. Just a couple different things, in particular like Elden Ore. Like the other recordings I had really bad luck with digging up Elden Ore, and this first playthrough where I had those recordings, I actually did pretty well with Elden Ore, so I have a lot more than I did in my other videos earlier in this walkthrough. When you're done messing around in this room, you want to continue on to the far left side of the room, and then you can blow the Araka off of the ladder. That's such a tongue twister to say all that. Blow the Araka off of the ladder, and then climb up to find a doorway. Now, it's blocked by some sand or whatever, and unfortunately, some dust. And unfortunately, if the rupees get in the way, you'll actually just spin the rupees around, which is kind of a cool effect, but they can get in your way. So this brings us back to a previous area, and there is actually a block here that you can push aside to create a shortcut back to that room. Although I'm not entirely sure what the reason would be for that, I guess just to get that treasure chest, but there is no reason to go back there. Like, you can't even go through that door unless you have the Gust Bellows, but the shortcuts, they're a good thing to have. So you can save at the nearby bird statue. You can save at the nearby bird statue if you want to, and then we want to proceed to the door to the south. This leads us back to a previous room we've been to before, but now that we have the Gust Bellows, we now have control over dust. That's right, you can gust dust all day long. You know, I hear that the general consensus online is that, generally speaking, most young females think that Link is pretty hot. So, and this is actually proof, because what is hotter than a ripped guy with a vacuum cleaner, right? I think the only thing you need to remember about Araka is pretty much this: free hugs. So you want to avoid these guys, but if they do manage to latch onto you, you can use a spin attack to get rid of them. This is in particularly true because a lot of times Araka come at you in pairs, so there's more than one or even several. Sometimes even just like a whole room full of them, so if you use spin attacks, you'll defeat all the ones near you as well. I mentioned that in, I think even the second video, whatever, of this walkthrough in reference to choo-choos, but it's more so true with Araka. Araka are like all over the place, and they're pretty prolific. You want to go ahead and use the Gust Bellows on the sand to the left, and you'll find a floor switch, as well as a block that is covered in sand. So once you uncover all that, you can then push it onto the block, or push the block onto the floor switch, which opens the nearby door to the right. I know our directions keep getting spun around, but this is leading to the west side of the dungeon. So you want to go ahead and continue on through here. There is a Froak. You can use the Gust Bellows to defeat it real quick by smacking it into the sand. So just push from the top. This will smack it into the floor, and it will blow up. You want to quickly go on to the next area, and as I keep explaining, you can dash forward with A, and then, so you use Z and A while pushing forward, and this will allow you to jump into the sand before you ever start using stamina. Just make sure you release Z, because you can't actually dash with A when you're holding Z. So that's one of the weird exceptions to that, because you can either jump or you can dash. You can't do both at the same time. Anyway, follow the obvious path, killing the Froak along the way, because they will reappear very quickly. So you want to get away from where the Froaks were, and then continue along this path. The Araka do probably need to be dealt with, because otherwise they will hug you, and then get to the far end, and there is actually a time shift stone. All you need to do is uncover it enough that you can smack it with your sword. Once you do so, all the remaining sand in this entire room, including all the dust, will disappear. I don't understand where all the sand came from. Like, I understand there's no holes in the ceiling or anything. I guess that must be what it is. I don't know. I don't understand. But now we have these platforms are actually alive. How they work is you can blow onto the various targets on them, and one color will lead them one direction, one color will lead them another direction. I'm not sure that there's any particular rhyme or reason. It's just kind of like whatever the developers felt like, I suppose. Sometimes they lead you left or right, and it just doesn't really matter. Continuing onwards, you want to use the Gust Bellows on the nearby propeller, and this will actually open the grate straight ahead. And then here we have a BMOS, and you can either wait for it to turn around, and you can hide around the corner, but generally speaking, I think it's a lot easier to just get close to them and use a shield bash to reflect their attack. This does, of course, only work because we have the wooden shield, or the race shield as it's been upgraded. If we had the iron shield, this would totally electrocute us instead. But another way to deal with those BMOs is you can like start charging a Skyward Strike, and then you can do a horizontal strike to start, or Skyward horizontal strike? I don't know what you call that. Skyward horizontal strike, sure. And that would defeat them as well. Up ahead we have another new enemy. This is called a Centro. What you want to do is you have to use a shield, actually. You can't defeat them with any other method. This particular one you can avoid it. It's awkward, but you could do that. What you have to do is shield bash the missiles that it shoots at you to reflect them back at it, and then it will release two little miniature Centro things. I can't think what they're called, actually, but those little guys, it'll release them, and one of them is horizontal, one of them is vertical. Just use regular sword strikes to attack them and defeat those. After you defeat the little mini probes or whatever, then you will be able to reflect another missile at the Centrobe, and that will defeat it. This next platform, you want to Gust Bellow the right side of the propeller thing, and this will allow it to continue on to the right side. So once you get it close enough, you can jump onto it and use it to reach this upper platform where there is a chest containing some treasure. And I feel like I often fall down off of here. No matter how careful I am, I tend to fall down. So I got a muster horn. That's not a super great treasure because we can get as many of those as we want later on. But for now, though, it is rare. I actually think it's a good thing to have early on. So here I totally killed myself because if I had just not used my sailcloth, it would have been fine, actually. It's kind of weird that it made me appear up here, because usually what happens is if you fall into a pit, it'll make you land in the last place where you were touching solid ground. It's how it usually works. It's actually kind of useful throughout this dungeon for speedrunning purposes. There's like certain places where you can actually jump off into the abyss on purpose, because you don't actually take any damage from it, so it's actually more to your advantage. Like, you can save a lot of time if you go to a particular location, then hop into the abyss on purpose. You'll appear back on land, back where you were. And I'll show an example of that later on in this dungeon. I just point out because that previous area is like one of the weird exceptions. I'm not really sure why it made me appear back there. So my calibration is off a little bit, and I'm fixing it real quick because there's a BMOS up above, and I want to make sure I can do those, the stab in particular. If your remote is not calibrated properly, a stab is very difficult. I also trying to show that you can stab multiple times. This did not really work out in my favor because it was facing towards me. I actually should have done is I should have waited on the ladder, and when the BMOS was turned away from me, that's when I should have climbed up. I was just being impatient. Blow on the nearby propeller. This will open the gate on the door, allowing us to proceed onto the next area. In this next room, we have a couple Staldra, and you can actually technically ignore them because they don't actually matter at all. You can lure them to this side of the room if you want, and then you can just continue on and start using the Gust Bellows on the block. It doesn't really matter so much. You can just ignore them. I do like to defeat them because they each drop 20 rupees, and it's kind of like each one of these you kill in the dungeon. I've already killed 2, so now I have a total of 60 rupees I've gotten from these guys. And the horizontal attacks are just seriously so strong for these guys. Their heads are horizontal right after they attack, and right after you shield bash them, and right after one of their heads regrow. So all of those options are really good for them. Next, you just want to head to the far side of the room where there is a block that is a little bit sandy, and there's a little patch of sand nearby that has an Arakan in it. So defeat that because it will be annoying, and then you can just pull this block. So like I was saying, you can actually just ignore the Staldra, and you can just start pushing this block if you want, and they'll actually ignore you, which is kind of weird. Like, I guess maybe there's like they don't attack you when you're close to the wall or something like that. I'm not sure why there's this stipulation. Maybe it just happens to be that we're not close enough for them to notice this in general. But yeah, they'll just totally ignore you if you get over to this block. But just push the block along the obvious path, and then once it's pretty close to the end, you can actually jump up it and use it to get up onto this next platform. Now, in the next room, there is a patch of sand that you can, or dust, or whatever, that you can blow with the Gust Bellows, and this reveals a timeshift stone. There's a couple different things you can do here. They're kind of intending you to use the slingshot. There's actually some, I think some jars or something nearby, or barrels, whatever, that have seeds in them. So that is in case you don't have enough seeds. But otherwise, you can also get attacked through here using a Skyward Strike. This is a little bit easier in hero mode because you have increased range, but you can also do this regularly too. You just stand really close to it and just shoot in between the bars, and this will move this room to the past. This wakes up the nearby Armo statue and also completely removes the Staldra if you did not defeat them, and that's partly why you didn't have to deal with them. So this new enemy and Armos has been seen in a lot of different Zelda games, and actually it's a little bit different for this particular game. How it works is you need to use the Gust Bellows to rotate the spinner thing on the top of it to the right instead. So spin it, hit the red side, and this will open its mouth so that it's vulnerable. The one side you can just use horizontal slashes and it jumps pretty frequently. The other side jumps really slowly, but it jumps a lot further. So you do want to make sure you keep your distance so it doesn't accidentally get super close to you. And this side, unfortunately, you do have to stab, so make sure your calibration on your controller is pretty good. Otherwise, you will constantly smack it with horizontal attacks instead of stabbing. So if you're sure that you got that worked out, that's great. Once you've defeated it, this will gain you access to the chest up above that contains the dungeon map. Now this one, I will actually say, is probably the least useful. There is some points where you definitely want to use the map, including especially in the next room, where you want to use the map to figure out how to progress through the room. However, that particular aspect of it is actually shown to you as you explore the room. This dungeon map does not provide any useful tips other than showing where the various chests are, and a lot of those are just rupees anyways, so it doesn't really matter that much. I would say this is one of the only dungeons in the game where the dungeon map is super optional and doesn't matter. Up ahead, there is a floor switch that you can step on that raises the gate and creates a shortcut back to the beginning of the dungeon. You can save at the bird statue here if you like, and I'm going to end the video right here. I try to keep my videos somewhere between 15 minutes and 40 minutes, just somewhere in that range. If it gets to be 50 minutes or longer, I feel like that's just too long for a YouTube video. This whole dungeon's 55 minutes, so I'm going to split it in half. But yeah, so that's the end of this video, folks. Join me for the next one, and we will continue with the second half of the Lanayru Mining Facility. In fact, let me see this. I can do this right now. There we go. So he lost his shield. Of course, he goes over to the far right side instead. Concussive hammer, boom. Oh gosh, he has a shield. Now I'm dead. Let's see. Sidewinder. Let's wait for a second. Concuss this guy. He might hit the glass wall, actually. I swapped with him. That was cool. Sweet. I'm happy about that.